Welcome to How I Built My Fundraising Consultancy, the stories behind the people driving results in the nonprofit sector.
My friend David Newman says, you don't get confident when you get better when you get more confident.
Today on the podcast is Mary Cahalane. Mary is the principal at Hands-On Fundraising. Her consultancy focuses on copywriting and teaching nonprofits a donor-first approach to fundraising.
A quick announcement. As a listener of the podcast, we are making the engagement fundraising audiobook available to you free of charge. Just go to imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer. As a thank you for listening, we wanted to give everyone free access to Greg's engagement fundraising audiobook that you can get on Audible or Apple Books for $15. Once again, just visit imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer. That's imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer. Thanks for listening to the podcast, and we hope you enjoy Greg's book. Now, on to the episode. We're here today with Mary Cahalane. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
First off, can you introduce yourself and Hands-On Fundraising?
I'm Mary Cahalane. I'm the principal of Hands-On Fundraising. It's a fundraising consulting practice located in Connecticut. I work with nonprofit organizations only. I focus on donor communications, short way to say that, copywriting, and fundraising planning, especially annual giving programs.
And something I noticed from your background is you have extensive experience with the arts and theaters and those types of nonprofits. How has that experience helped you with the work you do now in your own consultancy?
Arts fundraising definitely has its challenges. You know, people need to eat and you need to heal sick people and you need to give people homes. So art seems like a secondary kind of thing to folks, but it's also hugely rewarding. I was lucky. I began my nonprofit work in a theater running a box office down in DC. So when I moved up here, I looked for another theater job and ended up in fundraising. And in a weird way, I was lucky that the development director left after a few weeks, leaving me the only fundraising staff at the theater. But the marketing director and I got together and we kind of built a whole program from the ground up. So we didn't have anyone saying, oh, you can't possibly do that. We just did it. It was just fun. It was a great experience that you probably wouldn't have had in my position at that point, had that situation not just bloomed the way it did. So it was great. It was a wonderful learning experience.
So what was your background like before starting your business? How many organizations did you work for? How long were you in those groups?
I've been in fundraising for more than 30 years now, so it was probably 30 years of experience when I officially set out my shingle, as they say. Mm-hmm. I kind of bucked the trends, and I was not a 18 months at a time development person. My first fundraising job, I was there for nearly 12 years. The next one, 7 years. I had the time at both to really develop programs and really get to know donors and really experiment. You kind of can't do that when it's a 18-month tenure. So I had time to really try things, which is really the key to learning.
Yeah. And what made it possible for you to have such a long stint at each of those organizations?
Stubbornness. I don't give up easy. And I wasn't quite as concerned about my title or my position. I just wanted to be able to do good work and learn. It's maybe a little less ego involved, but mostly stubbornness. You couldn't get rid of me.
And when was it that you decided to start your own business?
2014.
And what was the inspiration for that?
I'd been thinking about it for quite a while, partly personal reasons, wanting more flexibility in my schedule, partly professional reasons. It's noticing that wherever I was or whoever I talked to, there were similar problems that needed to be solved. And instead of doing it one at a time for many years, I might be able to help more organizations at least start down the right road. So I kind of took the leap, but I did it slowly in my usual way. It was supposed to be a part-time position. It didn't end up being a part-time position at all, which is why that was the 18-month tenure. It had a couple of first clients who were either colleagues, long-known colleagues, or friends, or both, and started there.
And what is your approach to your consultancy? Do you focus more on kind of teaching your clients, empowering them to do the work themselves, or are you executing what your client's vision is?
It kind of depends on the project. If we're doing fundraising planning kind of work or, any kind of fundraising consulting work, then yes, a whole big part of that is teaching. Because I'll be there for a little while, but what you really want to see is long-term changes. So they're doing better and raising more money. For copywriting, many clients are calling me in because they don't want to have to spend a whole lot of time learning how to do this. They want an outside expert come in. Here's the brief. Here's what we want done, and do it. Although there's always some teaching there too, because a lot of fundraising communications is not very good. So hopefully I leave a little good example in my wake.
Yeah. Now, are most of your clients local to Connecticut, or are you kind of spread out across the country?
Planning clients mostly local.
Okay.
Writing clients all over the world, which is so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for Skype, right?
Right. Now, your website reads, great fundraising starts with happy donors. How does your focus on donors inform the work you do with the nonprofits and kind of your approach with them?
These days, donor focus is kind of the phrase of the day. Everybody's talking about it, but not everybody's doing it. If you're a fundraiser, if you're working in fundraising, if you want donors, that's really where you have to be. The entire organization has to be part of that fundraising and that donor relationship building. Does not mean everyone has to ask for gifts, but it means everyone has to be invested in the idea that donors are not profit centers, they're not ATMs, they're not just checkbooks. They're real people who want to be part of the mission. They're partners. If we can get that message through, then organizations suddenly have a whole different outlook. And it's like, we've got help. How about that? And these people want to help us. This is cool. More mission. It's an important mindset for fundraisers.
Yeah, for sure. Now, something I'm curious about is the name of your consultancy, Hands-On Fundraising. Where did that come from?
Remember that stubbornness? Even when I've been the chief fundraising officer in an organization, I just can't keep my hands off some jobs without helping. I never got to the point where I could just hand off the data without making sure things were done correctly. I stuff a mean envelope. I need that grounding in the actual physical work sometimes and not just the intellectual side of the work. So hands-on fundraising.
Now, how important is your website as a tool to generate new business?
I started blogging probably 5 years ago, and I didn't do it necessarily to market myself as much as feeling like there's this whole world of great information out there that people in our fundraising profession in the nonprofit world are sharing, widely and generously. And I wanted to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that I have something more important to say than anyone else, but I have my own unique things to say, and I wanted that to be helpful. So I think in some cases, it's been a way to be noticed. The blogging has helped with that. Suddenly, when you have someone whose books are on your shelf actually know who you are, it's kind of an amazing feeling,
Yeah.
I think it's important, but I think the generosity of the whole sector is the biggest part about it. Most of my new business comes from either referrals from past clients or from colleagues who say, oh, they need someone who does that. Mary's the one. Let's have Mary come in and do this. Thank you, everybody out there in the fundraising world. You're wonderful people.
And how'd you get those initial first few clients before the referrals started to come in?
Mostly people I knew. At that point, my circles were a little bit more local, obviously, but social media, Twitter. I found a world of nonprofit people on Twitter and soon had all these wonderful friends. So that was helpful too. There's a wonderful group on Facebook. Again, a whole group of supportive colleagues. And through all those kind of connections, I started getting referrals. To begin with, a few RFPs, but they're not the most fun way to start a fundraising consultant relationship.
Now, you do a fair bit of copywriting work.
Yes.
What kind of work does that entail? Are you writing their websites, doing letters to donors, or?
Everything really, from fundraising appeals to annual reports, case statements, donor newsletters. I love donor newsletters. And online digital kind of email. Not a whole lot of web copy yet, but it's all of a piece. It's all about getting the right message for that organization and communicating it in real language, not something high-flown and lofty and focused on the organization, but something that someone sitting down to read it, whether it's on a piece of paper or on a screen, feels like there's a conversation going on.
And is this writing all done by yourself, or do you have other people helping you at this point?
Officially by myself. Again, there are wonderful supportive people out there, and I have a group of friends, and we often, if we're gotten that, I'm stuck, I just can't get by this barrier, they'll jump in and say, hey, have you thought about that? So you have to find ways to find collaborators when you're working by yourself in your own little office. So cultivating groups like that is something I would definitely suggest anyone thinking about this work make a priority. It saves your brain. It just makes it all so much more fun when you have someone smart you can knock ideas around with.
Now, what's your business model? You mentioned that nonprofits can save money through a retainer program on your website. So it sounds like a retainer is something you try to encourage people to do.
Most of the work I do is project-based. And the reason for that is hourly work just ends up with a client being afraid to call you or email you or ask questions. And I'm looking for more back and forth, not less. So I work out a project fee and we do that. But I have offered a year-long program for organizations that need help with their annual giving program. And with that, I would cover the communications planning for fundraising, the writing, working along with their mailhouse or one that I use, and analyzing all the work and reporting. In a way, maybe for a smaller organization that can't quite afford a whole staff person, this would be a money-saving way for them because it would break down into a monthly fee that way. And for me, it would offer a chance to really work with an organization. You write one appeal, you've got one appeal, and it could do very well, but then you fall back to the regular communication they were doing before you wrote that one appeal, and it's hard to tell whether it had any lasting impact. But if you work with someone teaching and training and doing this for them for a year, then hopefully you make more of a mark.
Yeah. Now, is the project-based pricing something you've had to kind of adjust what you charge? Did you ever undercharge in the early days? Or
Often, often, yes. When you have absolutely no idea what the rate is, you start by figuring out how long does it usually take me to do this? But as you do it more, you also realize all the side things that it takes you to do. So it's not just the writing, it's the interviews, it's the research, so there's all this other stuff that goes into even just writing an appeal, which may look like a simple thing on the face, but if it's going to be a good one, you need to do all the background work. I think I'm getting a little smarter at that, but yes, I've certainly worked for far less than I ought to have over time.
Gotcha. Yeah. And what's your process for getting clients up and running with you?
Conversation, either on Skype, on the phone, or if possible, in person. When I can get there in person, within maybe a couple hours of my home, then we'll do that. Lots of questions, lots of getting to know them, hopefully some wider impressions beyond just the executive director, and really finding out what it is they need. They may have asked for X, but as you talk to them, you realize you may not be really ready for X yet, but let's try T, okay? That'll get you there better. It really takes knowing the client because every single client is unique. There's just no one-size-fits-all approach to this. Lots of questions from me, lots of questions from them. And then as we get to know each other better, we can slide back into the work easily. Clients I work with, every year kind of thing. It's much easier now.
And have you ever had to turn down clients, a client that isn't a good fit for you?
Yes. And when you're getting started, that's so hard to do, right? Is to turn work away. I need to fall in love a little bit with clients. I need to really care about their mission. It doesn't have to be the most important thing that I care about, but I have to be persuaded myself that it's important in order to communicate that well, in order to excite them about their work. There have been times when it's just not the right fit for me. It's hard to say that, but it's better in the long run if you're a little bit choosy.
Right, yeah. Now, in the beginning, how much of a financial investment did you need to make in yourself to get this started?
Not that much, surprisingly. It was time for a new computer and printer anyway, so those needed to happen. I built my website myself. Just bought a theme and figured out what I wanted where and put that together. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I could remember how to do this now after I did that and then just uploaded it. Little things like we had an accountant, the insurance broker we use for family stuff. I asked for insurance for this business and I had a lawyer set up the actual paperwork. But other than that, it's me and my brain and my computer. And that's kind of all that's been needed.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd change looking back now if you were starting fresh with the knowledge you have today?
I'd be a little bit more picky. I'd be a little bit more confident. My friend David Newman says, you don't get confident when you get better. You get better when you get more confident. And I'm trying to live that. I spend years, but I'm getting there slowly. You only learn by doing. So I don't know that I could go back because I wouldn't have what I've learned from doing it the way we did it.
What are some of your favorite tools you use to get your work done, applications and things like that?
Hemingway app at the top of the list. It's at hemingwayapp.com, and it's a fabulous tool to write better. You can just paste in what you've written, and it will tell you what's too hard to understand. It'll yell at you to lose those adverbs. Front and center of my toolbar on my browser. There are also a few headline analyzers that are really useful. Again, it's sort of like the outside way of having another opinion. There's one from CoSchedule, the Advanced Marketing Institute Headline Analyzer. Both are just awesome. Otherwise, my needs are kind of simple. There are a lot of great tools out there for images. And I've used Zoho and Asana to keep track of clients and projects, but mostly I've got a big giant notebook in front of me at all times where my scribbled ideas and my notes from client meetings and all of that sits. That would be a thing I'd hate to lose.
Paper sometimes is the best tool for it.
I think your brain works differently when you're writing than when you're typing.
What's your typical schedule like? Or is there typical?
It kind of depends a bit on the time of year. I'm not a winter person, so I've been sleeping later than I ought these days, but then I work a little bit later at the end of the day. Mostly my schedule is erratic because I need to focus intensely and then get up and walk away. And it's when you get up and walk away that you have the best thoughts. When you're out doing something else, running errands, whatever, it gives you some more brain food and you can come back and really focus again. So it probably looks like I'm goofing off more than I'm really working, but nobody's here to see me do that. So.
And I'd imagine it very greatly based on the projects you have, if you're doing more writing or teaching, things like that.
Exactly, right. If I'm out with clients, then that's more about a mutual scheduling needs. And if I've got 14 writing projects to worry about, then I'll be working a whole lot harder and a whole lot more. But that's also the fun of being a consultant. You can usually have some control over your own schedule. And when you need to do more, you do. And when you don't have to worry so much about it.
This episode is brought to you by us here at MarketSmart and Engagement Fundraising by Greg Warner. In this quick break, I want to remind everyone to go to imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer to download the Engagement Fundraising audiobook for free. This offer is only available to listeners of the podcast. It's our way of saying thank you for listening, and we really hope you enjoy the book. Once again, go to imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer to take advantage of this promotion, available only to listeners of the podcast. Now, back to the episode. Now, with that, let's get to lightning round, just a series of quick questions and answers. What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
Choose clients you really want to work with.
What book would you recommend to those getting started?
When I first started, colleagues suggested Alan Weiss's $1 Million Consulting. Definitely not my kind of consulting, but it was a good base of just how does this stuff work. And also my friend David Newman's Do It Marketing was really fun and helpful. He's still virtually kicking my butt every time I read one of his emails.
What's your favorite personal productivity habit?
Getting up and moving around. If you keep yourself glued in your seat, your brain just kind of tails off. And just writing stuff down that I need to remember means I never have to look back at the lists, but it's better in my brain that way.
What's the best under $100 purchase you've made in the last month or so?
That's hard to figure. If donations count, that would be it, because making unsolicited gifts to some of my great clients is just tons of fun. The emotional rewards in that one definitely make that the best $100 purchases.
What's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I was a total theater person from childhood on, dancer and actor, singer. So I made my way into the theater world by being totally obsessed with the theater world. The irony is I stopped doing theater when I started working in theater because you no longer have the time for it.
Do you have any important passions outside of work right now?
Well, my family, my kids, for sure. Beyond that, I'm lucky. My work fills a lot of my creative needs. I kind of feel like creativity is like toothpaste in a not so great toothpaste holder, and you squeeze at one end and you can't do that anymore and it's going to come out somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm not dancing anymore. I'm not acting anymore, but I'm writing a lot.
Tea or coffee? What would you prefer the drink?
Okay, this is embarrassing, but Coke. I have a terrible addiction. I'm really trying to break it, but I love Coca-Cola. I do drink tea, but I never learned to like coffee. I love the smell, but I just never learned to like the taste.
What do clients never ask you that you wish they did?
Is what we want you to work on what we really should be working on? We've hired you to do this, but is that really what we need?
And what are the best nonprofits doing right?
Investing in great staff and working really hard to keep them. Letting them learn and fail and learn some more and not penalizing people for making mistakes as long as they learn something from it. Nonprofits tend to underinvest in staff, and that's really should be the first thing they're looking at, and then making it something that people can do without killing themselves.
And what charities do you admire or support?
My husband and I do most of our giving together, and so there's this wide variety across the gamut. The ones that reach my heart the most are basic human need kind of charities, hunger, homelessness, women's rights, and the theaters and other places I've worked or where I've got good friends. I'll never stop being in love with those places.
And where can people find more information about your services?
That homemade website, you can find me either handsonfundraising.com or mcahalane.com will take you to the site. And if anyone has questions, you can email me at mary@mcahalane.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary, for your time today. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks for listening to this episode of How I Built My Fundraising Consultancy, presented by MarketSmart. If you like the show, make sure to review it in Apple Podcasts and pass it along to a colleague.
I also wanted to remind everyone to visit imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer to download the Engagement Fundraising audiobook for free. Once again, that's imarketsmart.com/exclusive-podcast-offer.
Thanks for listening.